Light up your face with gladness, hide every trace of sadness. Although a tear may be ever so near, that's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use of crying? You'll find that life is still worthwhile if you'll just smile.
John Pizzarelli grew up playing jazz standards with his father, but it was Nat King Cole's repertoire that led the swing guitarist and vocalist to add a personal touch to the Great American Songbook. Heather Longley speaks with Pizzarelli about why he gave up rock music for jazz standards, his international fan base, and his preference for dressing the part.
You've said that the one reason you were smitten with Nat King Cole's music is because, quote, it had all the ingredients that I liked about rock and roll. And you regularly listened to rock music and even played in a few rock bands. So what led you to jazz over becoming a rock musician?
Well, my father used to always say I'm the only guy who played jazz to support his rock and roll habit. So all the guys used to play, in rock bands that were supposed to make all the money, and then they would play their jazz gigs and make no money. But for me, it was always the other way around.
Okay.
From going in car rides and talking to my father, he'd point out all these different artists, and the big one for him was Nat King Cole's trio. So when I would listen to that, and knowing I had to play with my father a lot, I really was attracted to the music because it had, as a guitar player, all the ingredients for a guitar player were in there, playing rhythm guitar, playing solos, single notes, chords, and then the songs were interesting too. The songs were completely different than of Sinatra or Tony Bennett repertoire. Mm-hmm. There was this whole other sort of jazz repertoire that, like Route 66 and Frim Fram Sauce and Straighten Up and Fly Right. That was really, really fun. So that's where it all came from. I mean, that's what I thought. Well, that's it had a sense of humor. It was a lot of interesting things.
So I read somewhere that after high school, you left for the University of Tampa to major in trumpet. And then you came home and became a world-renowned guitar player and returned to the string instrument you picked up as a boy. So what happened to the brass?
It's hard. It's too hard. Okay. I got a real appreciation for it. I had a great teacher at school there, and I really liked it. But when I came home, I started playing gigs with my father a lot. And I had always played the guitar all the way through, so this was just the instrument that I could actually read on.
Okay.
And play in orchestras and things like that. It was as the bad phrase would be, it was my legitimate instrument, but it was so difficult. I was like, forget this, But I still love the instrument. I haven't played it in years, but I always loved the work that went into trying to play it. You lose a day on the trumpet, it's like losing a week. You have to play the trumpet every day. The guitar, you could actually not play one day, and the next day it's not like your fingers have fallen off or something. You always have to play the trumpet.
You're big in Japan. You're basically a swinging rock star there. Can you describe the level of fandom?
Well, I'm tall. Yes, I'm tall there. Yes, I'm very tall. It's funny. There's a gentleman who works where I get my shirts cleaned, who's from Korea, and he said to me, "You just were in Korea," and I said, It's very interesting, the difference between Korean audiences and Japanese audiences, because the Japanese audience is very reserved, and you don't know what they're thinking until the very end, when they'll come up to you afterwards and say, "Oh my God, it was so great." They just they sit and listen, and they're very reserved but very respectful, and so that's one thing. But the Korean audiences are they're just love. I mean, they shout, they scream, and they applaud, and they're very involved in the performance. It's a completely different thing. It was fascinating to see the juxtaposition of that.
So I wondered about the evolution of your dress style. In more recent videos and photos, you're wearing a smart suit. But then I saw a video where you were on live TV with your father, and he was dressed up, and you were wearing a sweater and jeans. So I wondered if you got in trouble that day, or if you decided later that you wanted to do something a little dressier, or...
No, I was in a band on that show. That's the Everyday Show with Joan London, and I was in the band. And for some reason, I always wore. And that day, my dad came in, and I came out in front and played with him. But I always wonder about that too. Why I didn't? I would normally wear a jacket and tie, and then I didn't in that band for some reason. I think that they were just sort of like the band loose, jeans and sneakers or whatever. And but the general rule of thumb was jackets and ties.
Okay.
That was just in our day. It was always a blue blazer and gray slacks. Now everybody just wears black. My thing has always been suits. I always like wearing good suits and all that because I think it's if you look like you don't care, if you're on the stage I don't know, for example, how guys who do the news can do the news without a tie on. You're reporting serious events or a loose tie.
Yeah.
I have never figured that out. But I feel like if I feel that way, then that's how the audience would feel. If they saw me up there, standing up there without a tie on, they'd think, well, what does he care about the music? You go to work, you get dressed up. There's no such thing to me as dress down Fridays. It's like, it just means you don't want to get dressed up.
Just means lazy
And what
Friday.
you do is we go to work. We get dressed up to go to work. It's just the way it is. That's, it's called being a human being in the world.
Okay.
And so I'm very pleased that people always say, I never see you without a tie. And I go, thank you. That's the way, I respect what I do.
I've watched a lot of your videos and noticed that in some of them you scat along with the music. Can you talk about that? I just love it when you do that.
Oh, thanks. It's something that developed since, like, when I first heard George Benson do This Masquerade, I copied it because he sang and played along like that. And then when I would play with my father, he would say, why don't you do that singing and playing thing that you do on that? And so I sort of developed it over a period of time, and every once in a while I started to do it, and then I started to get good at it. It's just something I've been doing for 30-some-odd years,
John Pizzarelli joins pianist and composer Ramsey Lewis in Straighten Up and Fly Right, a tribute to bandleader and pop star Nat King Cole, October 13th, 2016 at Penn State's Eisenhower Auditorium. For tickets or information, visit cpa.psu.edu or phone 800-ARTS-TIX.